Welcome to the Octopus Movement podcast, where we celebrate the unique minds and extraordinary potential of nonlinear thinkers. I'm your host for today, Dr. Janice Campbell, and we'll be exploring how the power of nonlinear thinking can transform the world. Now, I am so excited to introduce to you our wonderful guest, Laurie Seymour, who is a quantum connection mentor, an international trainer and podcast personality, and a Tereya Grandmaster, which I want to know what that is. Welcome, Laurie. I'm curious, how nonlinear thinking plays into all those things I just said about you.
Oh my goodness! Wait. How do we go into that?
I'll start with something small.
Yeah, really. Let's just dive into the deep end. And first of all, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to be here with you. I know that we have some crossovers and things we need to explore. So this is probably a first opportunity to do that, and I'm excited about that. So nonlinear. Oh my goodness. I never use that word because for me, everything is part of this quantum field. So that by its nature is nonlinear. It's impossible to be linear. It's like things don't travel just in one way. In physics, they're not just waves or particles.
Right.
So when we really, really, really start to embrace that, then what happens is we're paying attention and to so much more of our own, so much more of the input that's coming to us. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we're also tapping into parts of ourselves that we haven't perhaps used before, or we haven't even maybe known about before, except maybe at some very quiet level within ourselves.
Yeah, I like to say, that we're connected to those things and those pieces in ourselves in a matter-of-fact sort of way when we show up on the planet.
Yes.
And then we promptly forget about it 2 or 3 years in. And then we spend a lot of time looking to get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely. So as I mentioned, I want to know what this Tereya Grandmaster thing is.
Tereya is a form. There is a, what do I call it? The word itself comes from the word Tereya, which is the fourth state of being. It's that, and in the most kind of fundamental level, it's that space between wakefulness and sleep when you have that feeling of being suspended. And you're in that state, you are really in touch with all there is. Okay. And Tereya came into being through my teacher, Don Taylor, who had been willing to follow energy in her body, how it was coming in, and her inner voice with such trust for years and years and years. And this the form came through as Tereya touch and Tereya meditation, 2 different ways of accessing your own inner potential, of going deeply and raising your frequency. So it's really all about raising your frequency. It's not so much about how do we fix this or how do we heal this. It's right. tapping into that moreness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Yeah, as an acupuncturist, it's the mythology, the belief is that the way the points were found on meridians was through deep meditation by monks.
Mm-hmm.
And not just where they were, but what they did and what they were connected to and how it all wove together in a very nonlinear way.
Nonlinear way.
Right. And so that's right up my alley. I'll have to tap you about a deeper conversation about that later on.
Okay.
So before we got started, you said you're going to bust out of the nonlinear conversation pretty quickly. Where are we going? What's up?
Okay, well, that's a great question. I appreciate your way of even asking that. So to me, where we're going is into that place that we could call moreness as one way to say it. But it's really about the fact that we do come in this way. We do come in as this whole being. And we do come in having the remembrance of who we really are. And then, as you said so beautifully, we promptly forget. And we separate because of life situations, because we get plugged into the external world. We get plugged into trying to fit into what we see around us. I grew up with that feeling of, I know there's something else. I know there's more. I can feel it in my body. I know it. But yet nothing in my environment suggested that was true.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's
yeah.
a bit like I think what happens, at least in my view, is that we start accepting structures and stories
Mm-hmm.
externally
Yes. Yes.
rather than a full body, full person experience of
Right.
being alive. And so we start taking on those stories about ourselves or about other things. We start trying to fit ourselves into that slot in the box system. And
Yeah. And any box is by nature linear.
absolutely.
Any and every box.
Hmm.
And it can get scary to think about, oh, well, I need to go out of whatever this comfort zone is, until you realize how overrated comfort really is.
Yeah.
And that comfort doesn't allow you to explore those things that you may have forgotten or may have just gotten ignored or covered over. And for anybody that's ever felt like they're doing life wrong or they're not doing it right,
Hmm.
this is the conversation. It's no, let's see, well, what is it? So I created this, for example, quantum connection style quiz because I saw that people had different ways of connecting, not with necessarily their spirituality, but connecting with that whole quantum field.
Hmm.
And that knowing what that style was gave you the kind of the first step in starting to see, oh, here are my strengths. Here are the things that I really enjoy and love, and the things that maybe other people did not think were important about me, but I can see how they really are. And then, on the other side, it's, well, what things do I really need to work on? For example, there's one of the creative styles is the creative dreamer,
Hmm.
and the creative dreamers receive all kinds of access to ideas, and I know that place, even though that's not my main style, where I'm with someone and ideas are just coming and coming and coming for them. But when it's that way for yourself, then you have to learn about the other side, or it's not even the other side, discernment. So
Hmm.
discernment is your way of starting to say, from that inner connection, not from someone else's viewpoint, what is mine? Because if I'm opening and receiving all these different ideas, what is mine to do? And then another piece of that discernment is right timing.
Yeah.
So, what is this the right time? Because I have gotten ideas for myself that are way into the future before I
Yeah.
actually realize them. If Perry had received this idea for the octopus movement and had not stepped into it for however long it took him to do, he'd be missing out. We'd all be missing out on something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, that's interesting. Several thoughts come up in your speaking. Um, the first of which is that it almost sounds, or I would characterize it as moving not out of a comfort zone,
Mhm.
but how out of what you know to be comfortable to what is actually comfortable.
Ooh,
You
yes.
know, to what is actually free and comfortable and big enough and
And
beautiful
maybe
enough.
comfortable isn't quite the right word, because we can feel really moved out of our boundaries, which
Yeah.
isn't always comfortable. We're moved
Mhm.
into uncertainty.
Mhm.
And I
Or
just
or
read,
just not knowing, or just
which
not
isn't
knowing.
just simply not knowing, we're moved into the unknown. And the unknown, I have found, is the most, um, is the richest, most powerful place for me to be, because then I know that I'm moving into something that I just haven't yet experienced, which is
Right.
by its nature, of course, nonlinear.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
and the second thought I had in listening to you speak was about this idea of getting downloads of ideas, and some of them are for you to do, and some of them aren't. I this is you've just walked into my head. I because I've had that experience of thinking I need to run with this idea, When in fact I really just need to find the person to hand it off to. Whereas
Right,
this is the one
right.
I need. This is the one I need to run with over here, as
So,
opposed to.
so can I answer this question that Flores asked? Aren't things always happening always exactly at the time it's supposed to?
Mhm.
Yes and no. Meaning, if I'm able to tap into, and it's part of my makeup, into this whole field, that doesn't necessarily mean it's right timing in the whole. It's the right timing for you to perhaps, of course, to have the idea. That's why you had it. But maybe it's to open up to a next step, or to who you need to then bring into the mix, or. And my work is about teaching people how to connect with their own inner guidance system so that they can ask the questions from that deep inner place and get the answers. Like, is this the right time for me to work on that? Maybe it needs to percolate for 3 years. But to keep it there so that you can always tune into and ask those kinds of questions that inevitably come up.
So this explains. I was looking through your LinkedIn page because you and I haven't actually had a chance to have the
Right.
one untucked yet. It's on the list. Um, and I at some point in there you say something about how you're talking about all this work that you're doing, and then you're like, and then I help IT people, and I'm like, what?
And then which I
And
missed it.
then I help IT people. I help.
Oh, no. I don't help IT people. No,
Right.
but there was a segment of my life where I was a solutions engineer.
Okay. Because I was like, okay. Well, but it
No
makes
one's been
sense
able to
that
figure that out.
but you're helping them. It's the same. You were doing the same work. You were just doing it in a different way.
Well, no.
No.
No,
Okay.
not really. No, there were some things happening in my life, and first of all, I needed a regular job at that moment. And I won't go into all the things that were changing in my
Sure.
life, but I also wanted to tap into another part of me, and I wanted to work within a team and have that experience. And I stayed longer than I anticipated staying, but I was working in the telecommunications industry and working with the largest customers really on the planet, with Google and Intel and Kaiser Permanente and the military. And I wasn't helping them with, how do you tap into more? I was helping them with their cellular coverage and communication.
Mm.
But I did that in a way of, well, I'd never been trained in that.
Well, I didn't mean you were necessarily helping them and that doing the same work with them, but you were doing the same work in yourself. It sounds like being able to tap into that larger.
Okay, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. I think we would have seen some major shifts if you had actually been doing that work with
Yeah.
them.
And where I can do that, I love that. I love those places where I can work with those teams who are creating something, and to work with them to tap into that place in themselves, and then to start that whole co-creation process.
Which brings me to my next question.
Okay.
Can you give a specific example of where this expansive, for lack of a better word, skill set, practice, experience that you do?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give a specific example of how it's created a shift, either for you or for another group or person?
Mm-hmm. So the one that pops to my mind right away, and how do I say this in a succinct fashion, is somebody that I've worked with for a fairly long time. And her entire business has changed. And not only has it changed, it's expanded, it's grown. And now it's like she's operating at such a high level that these opportunities are coming to her that are opening doors for her, in the media, in so many different, I don't want to, give revealing information, of course, but in such a way that she's constantly having to keep expanding, meaning, okay, if this is coming, it's for me, and I see it's for me. So I take a deep breath and I move into that and what's needed for this now. And that's always the question. This is what's coming. It's what's being presented. How do I live into that? So I think of, if we really talk about what's non-linear, it's your creative intelligence. And creative intelligence by its nature is non-linear. It's expansive. It's using all of who you are at the cellular level. In a team example, I'm thinking of another group that they came having had a fair bit of experience around their own interconnection. And then they came together to be able to co-create as a group, which meant coming up with ideas for each other or tapping into those ideas for each other, being able to hold the frequency so that people could step into and bring through what was needed for a particular problem or issue that the team was dealing with. And the level of energy there is so high, and it's so joyful to me. And that's the thing. That's what keeps changing me, is I feel the joy. I do this twice weekly Tereya meditation live online program, or sessions. I've been doing it for about 7 or 8 years. And sometimes people will tap into things, actually often, where I just got the whole next part of what my book is about, or what the piece I need to add into this class, or, I just got a whole sensing of an experience of how I need to deal with my husband or my mate. Because all of that is part of life. I got my brand colors. I remember one day somebody said, I just got my brand colors for my new website.
Nice. I like the multifaceted application.
Absolutely.
And I think it's something that we've all heard sort of the concept of playing into your strength, playing into people's strengths, letting people play to their strengths. But I think it's also a piece of playing not just into your strengths, but into your curiosity.
Oh, yes.
It may not be my strength yet, but I want to know about that. Let me help you with this part of the project.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about working with that team, that's where I see juiciness come up for a team. Is when suddenly they're not cogs in a machine. They're all making soup together. Everybody's what about carrots? Wait, I just picked some garlic.
Yeah. I love what you're just saying about curiosity. It's so fundamental, and it's so important and overlooked.
Absolutely.
And if you've got people on a team that are curious about what could be, then you're really on the way to creating something brand new.
Oh, completely. Completely. I knew we should have talked. I knew we needed to talk. And I'm glad all these other people are here. Thanks for
I love
joining.
what Karen is saying. Curiosity and creativity are both being states.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're alive. They're electrified. They are electrified states. And what I mean by that is, you're electrifying matter, and you're going into that space where anything and everything is possible. And that's what Michelle is saying, the beauty between thoughts, which is what Tereya takes you into, that space between thoughts.
Little plug there for the coming film about Perry and the octopus movement. So speaking of the octopus movement, how do you see all of this? I mean, for me, it's a logical link, but how do you, or an intuitive link, how do you see all of this playing into the octopus movement's concept of the human mycelium?
What is the human mycelium if not that co-creative potential? It's like that. When you start connecting with others from that place of curiosity, from that place of honoring what is yours to do in the world, my goodness, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. And what's been created and what's being created is the ground for being able to do that. And that takes holding a very big, it's way more than a container, because it's not really a container, but the energetic space for these kinds of connections and opportunities to unfold. And what Michelle said a little while ago, I think it was Michelle, we have to be able to go into that quiet space in order to do that too. Because if we're always jumping in, we can't be inside. We can't access what the moreness is.
Right. Well, and we can't bring it out into the conversation or the process or the connection
Right.
to any
Right.
of those things if we're
Right.
not tapped into it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so then that expands to the bigger question of how do you know, one of the octopus movement's main mission statements is to solve the unsolvable.
Mhm.
And I mean, again, seems obvious to me given our conversation. And I mean, when we think about the unsolvable, we think about, in a lot of ways, things that humanity has created that we now need to uncreate,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
the environmental issue, you know, the stagnation in a lot of education systems, the,
Mhm.
you know, way we treat each other, period.
The way we treat ourselves, can I
The way,
include that?
yeah. Well, that's where it starts, right?
Yes, it is. It
Right.
is.
And from listening to you talk, what comes to me is that it becomes, it's about losing our connection to the moreness, as you say.
Yeah.
Lose it, or forgetting that we have that taproot. And like if we were a plant, we're forgetting that we have taproots and we're just waiting for it to rain, you know, and
Yeah.
we're waiting to catch everything
Wow.
in our leaves. And
Oh, Janice, that's magnificent. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And at the heart of it, I think is that we've forgotten that we are love. That we come from love, that we are love, that we're connected to love, that we create only really true creation from that vibration of unconditional love.
mhm.
And that to me is really, really at the heart of everything that I do and everything that I'm about and everything the way I see change happening in the world.
hmm Well, and that love is an expression of that connection, right? And it's an expression of that mycelium that exists,
It
that we're,
is.
you know, that we're just pointing to and saying, by the way, you know, we're all part of this thing, right? You're just the mushroom cap. Remember that we're
Exactly.
all, you know, we're all
That's
attached.
why I'm so excited to be one of the founding members here at the Octopus Movement. It's it's an extraordinary opportunity to say yes. I
Mhm.
guess that's really it, just to simply to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Michelle points out unconditional love where there is no judgment.
Oh,
Yeah.
hallelujah.
Yeah.
And because mostly people have judgment about themselves and underneath it all,
hmm
I mean, that's what I've had to go through to get to the other side. And I still have to pay attention to that. It's someone comes up with what looks like, oh, that's a dumb idea. Well, that's the judgment. Like,
Yeah.
how could you be curious about it?
Right. Well, and that's one thing that I've noticed in the octopus movement is that, I mean, there's a bunch of us, and we all think a gajillion different ways about a gajillion different things
Mhm.
at any given moment, and then it will all change again.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that strikes me most is how genuinely kind we are,
Mm.
and
Mm.
as a group, as individuals. You know, somebody says something that's out there, you know, that everybody's like, it's never like, what a stupid idea. It's like, I don't understand how that fits. Explain to me how that fits. You know,
Mhm.
it's a completely
Mhm.
different conversation. It brings back that curiosity piece.
It does. It does. And it opens doors rather than shuts them, which is what's
Yeah.
happening in so much of the world's conversations these days. Doors are being shut
hmm
and locked.
Yes. And barricaded
Yeah.
and yeah, etc.
Yeah. And what
Um,
Cindy says, we change our neurons, we change the cell, we change the amount of light that we can breathe into our cells, which
mhm.
raises the frequency. And when you raise the frequency, you're just not down on that level where illness is, where the judgments are. So it kind of behooves us to try that out.
Yeah. Well, and I usually have his name right on the tip of my tongue. Apologies.
Mm.
But the experiments that were done with around water and
Oh,
water,
yes.
um,
Yes, yes. I forget
responding.
his name too.
Yeah, responding to doing crystallizing water and looking at the shapes changing depending on what was said to them or felt towards them. Or the example of the elementary school where they set up two plants in exactly the same light, same water, same dirt, same nutrients, same everything. But they had all the kids say mean things to one of them and nice things to the other, and the plant getting nice things said to it thrived, and the other one didn't. I mean, we're,
we are those plants with the
tablets. Right. We are those plants. We are made up of water. How much simpler does it need to be? But yeah. So speaking of all of this, do you have any tips for people listening and joining in the conversation, and those just kind of paying attention or watching later, about how they can tap into this moreness?
Absolutely. When you start from the premise, even if you don't feel it and don't know it, that there is more, that there is this bigger picture. So we start from that. Okay, I'm just gonna try that out in my mental idea. Okay, then get quiet. Then get quiet and just allow your breath. Feel your breath. I like to suggest imagining your breath as light. Whether you see it, feel it, sense it, doesn't matter. But breathing that in and breathing that into the center of your chest cavity. That's your heart center. And so I know there's a lot of focus on belly breathing and all of that in different traditions, but just to try that out, just to breathe that light into your heart center and let it fill you. Let it fill your whole chest from front to back and side to side. Let it rise to the crown and fall back as you exhale. And just do that with no agenda. And because you'll find that you start getting relaxed. Maybe you feel a little softer, a little more gentle towards yourself. Maybe there's a thought that comes in, a thought of that you'd think, well, that's silly, or I've never had that before. Pay attention to those kind of flyby thoughts, because they're coming in from a different part of you. They're coming in from a different connection with your own infinite potential.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're getting near the end here. This is the conclusion of our wonderful, heartfelt, beautiful conversation.
Can I speak about the Moreness Retreat for a second?
Oh, sure. Pop it in there. Yes, okay. Please do.
Just because Perry and I have talked about this, and Yvonne Dom, who is another founding member, and I are doing a retreat called the Moreness Retreat in Barcelona, Spain in April. And you're invited. You're invited. It's small because it's intimate. We're limiting it to 12 people. And I'm so excited by already who's coming and how this is going to be, because it's the conjunction of my brilliance and Yvonne's brilliance and everyone else's to bring in that co-creative kind of energy.
And when she says you, she means everybody. She's not just talking
I do. I exactly. Thank you.
I like being special, but not in this case. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laurie. This has been wonderful. And so how can our listeners get in touch with you?
The best place is at thebacainstitute.com. And Baca is B-A, there it is right on the screen, B-A-C-A institute.com. And Baca is a place in southern Colorado where a group of us there was about 50 of us that did research for many, many years down at the Baca Grande in the southern Colorado. So that's why it's named that. Gotcha. And we were doing research about our own inner changes with these new energy systems.
And that's where they can also find out about the Moreness Retreat?
Yes, they can find out about it there. There is something there, or they can just reach out to me, and I'm happy to share the link so you get to see the great pictures.
I love that. All right, so thanks everybody for joining us. And if you have any questions about how you can join the Octopus Movement, feel free to either reach out to me here on LinkedIn, or you can visit theoctopusmovement.org online. And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter and all the places.
Mhm.
And remember, we all start out of the box. Embrace your inner octopus. Join the movement. Let's bloom a sustainable future together. This is Janice Campbell of the Octopus Podcast, signing off until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.